Yes, we're back out on the 125 today, back out on the YZF 125, and I tell you, it's been a minute since we just took this bike out just for a ride. It's not particularly warm today. It could be a lot worse. It's about 10 degrees, so it's probably still just about comfortable enough for a ride out. But it's not raining. The ground is wet, so we need to be mindful of leaves and mud on the road because we are going to be hitting up some country lanes. But hey, it's Christmas and we've got a couple of days off work, so it's an ideal time just to get out on the bike, just enjoy the scenery. Now, I've said it before a dozen times, but I'm going to say it again. There is just something about this bike that I absolutely gel with. And I don't know what it is, if it's anything in particular, or whether it's just the whole package. But I gel so well with this bike. Don't get me wrong, lately I've had a couple of opportunities to ride other bikes. So we took the Honda Rebel 500 called Faith. We took her out for a ride out, and let me tell you, that was one of the most chilled rides I'd ever had. Absolutely amazing. I would love to take that bike out again. And we spent a week with the Cafe Racer. Again, absolute pleasure to ride that bike. It's an absolute pleasure just to stand there and look at that bike, actually. But then I get back on this bike and yeah, this bike just does it for me. Maybe this bike just fits me that well, or maybe it's just because I've had this bike so long. You know, this bike is probably like an old pair of leather boots. You know, you've had an old pair of leather boots for years and you've worn them in to the point where they just fit you perfectly. That's kind of how this bike feels to me. I don't know, maybe it's not that. Maybe these bikes really just are that good. I don't know. But this one just seems to fit me perfectly. And I'd never really thought about whether a motorbike fits the rider. You know, when I first started riding, you've got 1,001 things to think about and to focus on and to concentrate. And yeah, maybe this bike just fitted me well from the start, because I'd never really thought about how well a motorbike fits. And then I got my Daytona 675 and she didn't fit me particularly well, you know. And so then I started to learn about motorbike ergonomics and making a bike fit you. You know, this bike I could do with some adjustable levers, if I'm honest, because when I've got my when I've got my winter gloves on, I don't have as much give, I don't have as much room, there's not as much stretch in them, so kind of struggle with these levers a little bit. So I could do with some adjustable levers, but apart from that, this bike still fits me absolutely perfectly. This whole area, it's like a forest stage on a rally. We do have to be careful though. I have already come across some leaves and mud on the road. But yeah, it's like a rally stage, a forest stage on a rally. I think I know what this bike is to me. This bike is my comfort zone. Yeah, this bike definitely represents my comfort zone. And I do think genuinely it is because this bike, yeah, I think it is that good. I think it does fit me that well, and I think it is because of how long I've had the bike. Because I've had this bike 4.5 years, that it, you know, I've had this bike so long that it has become my comfort zone, which is great. It's great that I've got a bike that I gel with so well, but you have to be careful of that comfort zone. It can get a little bit too comfortable, and you do need to step outside of your comfort zone, otherwise you won't grow as a person if you never step outside of your comfort zone.
You know, I still have people complimenting me on this bike. Even in his muddy post-forest stage condition, I would still have people complimenting me on this bike, which is really nice. And then when you say to them, it's not bad for a 125, is it? They don't believe you. They don't believe that a 125 could look this good. It typically tends to be people who aren't massively into bikes, and so they don't expect a 125 to look as good as this. Now, I'm biased, of course, but I believe that when Yamaha designed the first generation of this bike, they did such a good job of designing this bike that it definitely appears to have aged incredibly well. Even next to its later cousins, you know, the 2nd gen and 3rd gen and so on and so forth, still looks amazing today, even though this bike came out 15 years ago. But when you do finally manage to convince someone that this is, really genuinely is, a 125, the look on their face is a picture. Perhaps they looked at this bike and they noticed the 125 sticker, and then the penny drops and you see the look in their face that it really is a 125. Or maybe they looked for the honking great engine that you expect to get on a bike that looks this good, and they didn't find it. One thing I used to do, I used to show people my L plates and then explain to them how CBT works and explain that I can't ride anything bigger than a 125, and then they would believe me. That sounded like a humble brag. Unintended, of course. Next time someone doesn't believe this is a 125, I'll just start the engine for them. I mean, I still have what is mostly a stock exhaust. It's modified slightly, mostly cosmetically, but still sounds like a 125.
And I do like modifying this bike. It's not just the exhaust. I do have a half dozen other modifications on this bike, kind of subtle ones. I'm not massively into modifying motorbikes, but I've also got a couple of other mods planned, including, hopefully, some adjustable levers. Hey, maybe I'll do the R6 lever conversion.